Gun owners, listen closely, because the landscape of firearm ownership in 2026 is about to change in ways most people never imagined. On January 15th, 2026, the Supreme Court issued a monumental 8-1 ruling that has already begun sending shockwaves through every state, every gun store, and every household where firearms are present. This is not a routine court announcement. It is a seismic legal shift that opens the door to 5 highly controversial gun laws set to take effect throughout the year. Experts are warning that some of these laws carry fines of up to $10,000, registration deadlines beginning as early as March 2026, and restrictions that could affect millions of law-abiding Americans. The scale and immediacy of these changes mean that anyone who owns a firearm, or even plans to acquire one, needs to act now before it's too late. The first law under the microscope targets high-capacity magazines, a regulation that has already caused panic in several states. Starting April 2026, any magazine capable of holding more than 10 rounds could be deemed illegal in designated jurisdictions. Law enforcement agencies have begun sending out notices, warning residents that possession of such magazines without proper registration could result in felony charges or steep fines. In states like California, New York, and New Jersey, authorities are reportedly preparing to conduct random inspections and compliance checks, leaving gun owners scrambling to understand exactly how this new law applies to their collections. Imagine opening your safe tomorrow, only to discover that your legally purchased magazines are now classified as contraband, and failing to take action could cost you thousands of dollars, or worse, your freedom. The Supreme Court ruling effectively gives these states the green light to implement these laws aggressively, meaning hesitation or ignorance is no longer an option. Next, the spotlight falls on concealed carry permits, an area already fraught with confusion and bureaucracy. Several states are introducing mandatory retraining requirements, targeting permit holders who have held their credentials for more than 5 years. By June 2026, anyone in this category may be required to complete comprehensive training courses that include updated legal information, modern safety protocols, and the latest storage requirements. Missing these deadlines could result in automatic suspension or revocation of your permit. Millions of Americans could suddenly find themselves in violation of the law through no fault of their own. For those who have carried a firearm for years without incident, this change is both alarming and urgent. Imagine believing you are fully compliant, only to discover that a missed training course now places you in legal jeopardy. Another layer of complexity arises from increased background checks, set to roll out July 2026. Unlike previous systems, these background checks will scrutinize private sales, transfers, and even certain online transactions. Authorities will have access to criminal databases, mental health records, and, controversially, social media activity in some states. Experts warn that these measures are unprecedented, creating a scenario where even law-abiding citizens could be flagged as high-risk purchasers. While intended to enhance public safety, the combination of stricter scrutiny and ambiguous criteria means that millions of Americans may face unexpected obstacles when buying or transferring firearms. This development, too, stems from the Supreme Court's decision, which reaffirms states' authority to regulate firearms more aggressively than ever before. By September 2026, gun owners will encounter yet another critical change: mandatory reporting of lost or stolen firearms. Under this law, any gun that goes missing must be reported within 72 hours, and failure to comply may carry criminal penalties, including jail time. Law enforcement agencies justify this measure as a step toward reducing gun trafficking and the illegal use of stolen weapons. However, for everyday owners, it introduces a new and significant responsibility. Even temporary negligence, leaving a firearm unattended at a family gathering or in a vehicle, could lead to serious legal consequences. The combination of this law with the other 4 new regulations creates a complicated web that gun owners must navigate carefully or risk inadvertent violations. The final law in this series deals with age restrictions and carry eligibility, coming into effect by December 2026. Individuals under the age of May 21st face stricter prohibitions on purchasing or carrying specific firearms, while older adults could encounter new documentation requirements for continued legal possession. These rules, coupled with the other four laws, create a highly complex legal environment where even the most diligent owners may struggle to remain fully compliant. Legal analysts have emphasized that this is not a minor adjustment. It is a fundamental shift in the way states regulate gun ownership, and the consequences for failing to comply are severe. The cumulative impact of these changes is profound. Millions of Americans who have carried firearms legally for decades are suddenly facing a landscape filled with deadlines, requirements, and the possibility of penalties for unintentional noncompliance. Failing to update permits, neglecting retraining, or overlooking reporting requirements could lead to fines, loss of rights, or even criminal charges. Experts warn that the next 6 to 12 months will be critical. Staying informed, taking immediate action, and understanding the requirements of your state is no longer optional. It is a matter of legal survival. Beyond legality, the practical implications for personal safety are enormous. Restrictions on high-capacity magazines, stricter concealed carry regulations, and intense background checks have gun owners questioning whether they will retain their ability to protect themselves effectively. Scenarios that once seemed improbable, being caught unarmed in emergencies or facing legal repercussions for minor oversights, are now very real. Law-abiding citizens who have never faced legal issues before could find themselves in jeopardy almost overnight. The Supreme Court decision has created a domino effect, empowering states to enforce regulations with unprecedented rigor. Every gun owner must weigh not just the legal risks, but also the potential impact on personal safety and readiness. The urgency cannot be overstated. Reviewing firearms, checking magazine capacities, ensuring permits are current, completing mandatory retraining, and understanding reporting requirements are critical tasks that must be completed immediately. Millions of Americans are already moving to comply, and the coming months will separate those who are prepared from those who will face consequences. The legal landscape in 2026 is not forgiving, and delay can result in fines, permit revocations, or worse. Knowledge, diligence, and action are no longer optional. They are essential. As we move into the next phase of 2026, the real-life impact of these laws is becoming increasingly clear. Take California, for example. Already one of the strictest states when it comes to gun regulations, it is now preparing to enforce the high-capacity magazine law starting April 15, 2026. Local authorities have begun sending letters to gun owners warning that any magazine over 10 rounds must be surrendered or registered under new state protocols. Experts say that failure to comply could result in fines ranging from $2,500 to $10,000, and repeat violations could escalate to felony charges. Residents report confusion and anxiety, as many collectors believe that their magazines, purchased legally years ago, were exempt. But the Supreme Court decision has effectively strengthened the state's ability to regulate firearms aggressively, leaving no room for ambiguity. In Texas and Florida, the concealed carry laws are undergoing a transformation as well. Both states have announced mandatory retraining programs, and experts predict that over 1.5 million permit holders nationwide will need to complete updated safety and legal courses by June 2026. Gun instructors report a surge in enrollment inquiries, with some training facilities already operating at full capacity. Legal analysts warn that missing the retraining deadline, even by a single day, could result in automatic suspension of a permit. For citizens who rely on concealed carry for personal protection, this is more than an inconvenience. It's a legal and safety concern that could have real-life consequences in critical situations. Meanwhile, the expanded background check requirements set for July 2026 are causing nationwide concern among both buyers and sellers. Unlike traditional checks, these enhanced screenings will review criminal records, mental health histories, and even social media activity in certain states. Authorities will now have the ability to flag transactions as high risk, even for individuals with no prior offenses. Gun advocacy groups are warning that this unprecedented level of scrutiny could delay legal purchases or even prevent some law-abiding citizens from obtaining firearms altogether. Experts note that these measures are likely to disproportionately affect first-time buyers, collectors making private transfers, and those purchasing firearms in rural areas where access to licensed dealers may be limited. The mandatory reporting of lost or stolen firearms, starting in September 2026, is another regulation creating panic among gun owners. Imagine leaving your home for a weekend getaway and returning to discover a firearm is missing. Under this law, you have 72 hours to report the loss to local authorities. Failure to do so could lead to criminal charges, including potential jail time. This regulation, while intended to prevent gun trafficking and criminal use, adds a layer of responsibility that many owners are unprepared for. Experts suggest that gun owners immediately develop strict tracking and storage protocols to avoid accidental violations. Smart safes, tamper-proof locks, and routine inventory checks are no longer optional. They are necessary to ensure compliance and avoid legal repercussions. Age restrictions are also causing a wave of uncertainty. By December 2026, individuals under 21 in certain states will face stricter rules on purchasing and carrying specific firearms. Older adults, particularly those renewing permits, will need to comply with new documentation requirements, including proof of continued eligibility, training, and safety certification. Experts warn that failure to adhere to these requirements could leave many longtime gun owners suddenly unable to legally carry, exposing them to fines or criminal liability. This shifting regulatory environment makes understanding state-specific laws more important than ever, as a simple oversight could lead to severe consequences. Experts across the country are urging gun owners to take proactive steps immediately. The first recommendation is to inventory your firearms, including magazines, accessories, and concealed carry equipment. Check the legality of each item under the upcoming laws. Next, ensure that your permits are up to date and that you enroll in any mandatory retraining programs before the June 2026 deadline. For those concerned about lost or stolen firearms, implement rigorous tracking and storage systems, including smart safes and detailed logs. Finally, keep abreast of your state's age-related and eligibility regulations, particularly if you are approaching renewal or have family members under 21 who may be affected. Real-life scenarios are already emerging. In New York, one resident reported being fined $3,500 for possessing a high-capacity magazine purchased legally in 2018. In Florida, a gun owner's concealed carry permit was temporarily suspended because his retraining course expired by just one day. These cases are not isolated. They illustrate how the Supreme Court ruling has set the stage for rapid and strict enforcement across multiple jurisdictions. Legal experts warn that the coming months will see a surge in similar cases unless gun owners take immediate preventive action. The Supreme Court's decision has also sparked debates nationwide, with gun rights organizations arguing that these laws infringe on constitutional protections. Public safety advocates, on the other hand, maintain that the regulations are necessary to reduce gun violence and prevent firearms from falling into the wrong hands. Regardless of political perspective, one fact is undeniable. Gun owners cannot afford to be passive. Compliance, awareness, and immediate action are no longer optional. They are critical to maintaining both legal standing and personal safety. The domino effect of these regulations cannot be overstated. Imagine this scenario. A gun owner in New Jersey misses the March 2026 magazine registration deadline, fails to complete the mandatory June retraining, and neglects to report a firearm stolen in September. By December, he faces fines totaling over $15,000, potential permit revocation, and criminal investigation. Multiply this scenario across millions of gun owners nationwide, and the scale of enforcement becomes staggering. The Supreme Court ruling has not only empowered states to enforce these laws, it has created a situation where every delay or oversight can have cascading legal consequences. For law-abiding citizens, preparation is the only safeguard. Experts advise establishing a compliance calendar, marking key dates such as registration deadlines, retraining completion, reporting windows, and permit renewals. Understanding your state-specific requirements, documenting all actions taken, and consulting with legal professionals can make the difference between staying compliant and facing penalties. Awareness, organization, and diligence are essential, as the coming year will test the ability of every gun owner to navigate this complex legal landscape successfully. The stakes are high, and the timeline is unforgiving. March 2026 marks the beginning of magazine registration deadlines. June brings retraining requirements, July enforces enhanced background checks. September demands timely reporting of lost or stolen firearms, and December finalizes age-related restrictions. Each deadline carries real consequences, and failing to act can result in fines, permit revocations, or criminal charges. For those who have carried firearms legally for years, this is an unprecedented challenge, a year that will test both knowledge and responsibility. In conclusion, the Supreme Court's 8-1 ruling has triggered a series of changes that will reshape gun ownership in 2026. The 5 dangerous laws, targeting high-capacity magazines, concealed carry permits, background checks, lost or stolen firearms, and age restrictions, will create a new reality for millions of Americans. These laws are already being enforced in stages, with deadlines starting as early as March 2026. For gun owners, staying informed, taking immediate action, and complying with state-specific regulations is not just recommended, it is essential. The clock is ticking, and the legal landscape is shifting faster than ever. Preparation, diligence, and proactive measures are the only ways to ensure that your rights, safety, and freedom remain intact in 2026. The coming months will define who is prepared and who faces the consequences, and there is no time to wait.